Okay, Jupiter Ascending is the 2015 Wachowski siblings film. It stars Mila Kunis as Jupiter Jones. She's the one who's ascending. Channing Tatum as Gene Splice Wolf Angel Human Guy. Sean Bean as Stinger, Human Bee Hybrid. And the guy who played Stephen Hawkins, who I believe won an Academy Award for it. This film is visually stunning. Great costume work. There's some pretty solid special effects, especially for the weird dragon lizard people. And some nice practical effects, especially on the elephant-faced guy. There are some nice concepts, but this film is an absolute train wreck. If you want to do action, adventure, sci-fi, space, do that. If you want to do science fiction, political thriller, do that. If you want to do science fiction, bizarre philosophical bend about overconsumption, do that. Don't try to combine every single different thing you can do with the word sci-fi into one film. Within the first 15 minutes of this film, I was like, why do I feel like I've walked into a film that's been going on for like a half an hour? There's so many random things going on that you're kind of like, okay. So we went from like random CGI planet where one guy looked like he was rendered really poorly. Oh, he was a hologram. Okay. So we now know that there are 3 people who are mourning the loss of their mother. Okay. You never saw what happened to the mother, and she's just hinted at as to what happened. Alright. But on Earth, which is one of the inheritants of the 3, is Jupiter Jones, who is the genetic replicant, what we would call reincarnation of the mother. And they're trying to hunt her down because if they can capture her, they can potentially then get the rights to harvest Earth once it hits to a point where it's exhausted all its natural resources. Okay. And we're going to send werewolf Channing Tatum, who's a lichen something. Everything has an explanation. All the explanations are decent. It's just you don't go from like an action sequence to like a 5-minute dialogue block where everything is told about everybody. And every single twist and turn, minus will come with like a warning, turn up ahead. It took concepts from so many other movies, like gene splicing. Oh, they mentioned memory erasing. Okay, so gene splicing, you've bits and pieces from Men in Black. They've got a ton of alien races and people with like robotic stuff stuck into their heads. So there's a lot of really interesting and unique things going on. Just the overall narrative is horrible. Mila Kunis and Channing Tatum have 0 chemistry. There was more chemistry Channing Tatum when he was in Magic Mike. And the woman they paired him up with, who had the personality of a freaking Duracell battery. They had better chemistry. These two just do not match at all. So they have a budding romance, which has moments of like Lacusian dialogue to it. I mean, there are moments where I don't care who you had for an actor. Certain scenes just have such horrible moments of dialogue that you're like, someone wrote this and thought it was funny? This film is so mismatched in its tempos. They do this really, what should have been an amazing fight sequence in Chicago, with ships that are able to kind of like transform and change their flying patterns, change their wing locations, become submersible and go underwater and fight underwater. But it just feels like Channing Tatum is just doing this with what looks like Tron handles. Everything is this really unique looking 3D like touchscreen motif to it. They do some really interesting bits and pieces of technology with this. But the whole time they're doing this massive battle, I'm like, okay, it doesn't look like they are at all in Chicago. You can tell someone took shots of Chicago and then digitally inserted these and didn't put, they do it at night so you can get away from not having to have shadow, not having to have people. But there'd be people walking all over the place where they are at in Chicago at night. But there's no people anywhere as they're shooting up buildings in Chicago. In all appears they do actually have to hit the Willis Tower pretty aggressively. And they explain it with like an offhand comment. You look in the rearview mirror. So they've said this is this generation's Battlefield Earth. No, it's not that bad. Battlefield Earth, you watch and you're like, this is absolutely horrible. There's zero redeeming quality in Battlefield Earth, except if you're a masochist. This one, there are moments where you go, that's a good idea. Why did they... Or, that's a really stunning vista. That's a nice looking shot. It's a pointless shot. Oh look, now we're having the two of them fight their way through an armada of something. It's the random throw stuff at the screen CGI moments. Like, alright. I don't care for any of these characters. I don't care for the love story, which is horribly done. It felt like this film needed to have had one genre removed to it. They could have pretty easily had tweaked and removed. If they had removed a lot of the action sequences and just went for an actual like science fiction drama with a philosophical and political bend to it, this could have been a really interesting film. Instead, they went like the second, third movies of the Matrix. We're going to have action sequences, but then we're going to throw in just blocks of dialogue, which make you go. I liked the flying shooting part. Why did we go from that to like a long-winded section of dialogue? How are they going to finish talking? I don't need to know every single bit of detail about every single thing that's going on. So you went from the beginning where you're like, wait, what? Yeah, there's a lot of dialogue, but they're doing that whole like not talk to the camera so you don't pick up every single thing. So if you watch it a couple of times, you would pick up every single small line of dialogue. There's a couple parts here and there where you probably thought, oh, okay. These sentences make a lot more sense if you know the entire plot of the film going into it. Like I said, visually stunning. Great job when it came to the special effects to it. Beautiful job when it came to set design when they went for a real set. Great looking costumes. And then there are moments where you're like, oh, okay. That seems kind of overdone. Probably could have saved a couple mil if you'd not done that shot. But this bizarre mismatch of so many genres simultaneously was just the ruination of this film. Now, people complain, well, when you do an original film, this is what happens. It's too out there. It's too unique. It's too different. Gravity made money. Fairly original sort of premise. I mean, we haven't seen that sort of film in quite some time. Actual people stuck in actual space, with one person being your primary character. Interstellar. That was pretty specific space exploration science fiction. Inception. There are a lot of films that come out that are original concepts that do well. What hurt this film? The Wachowskis really haven't done a stellar film for both commercial and critical kind of since like the second Matrix film. So that's like early 2000s. Their V for Vendetta was not good. They tried to update it and remove the heart and soul of the story, and tried to throw on a different, unique ending. I was like, oh, George Bush is the problem, not Margaret Thatcher. Speed Racer. Oh. Oh. No. So they've kind of had early success, and then they've had a lot of really bad movies. They're like M. Night Shyamalan. Couple of solid hits, and then a bunch of just really bad films. To the point that when you're like, this film doesn't promise. Wachowskis, nope. Nope. Been burned way too many times by you guys. Or you siblings. I think if you put this with somebody else, who I might have had more, I gotta rein it in more. I can tell that when you're watching this film, that it almost feels like you're watching part 2 of a trilogy. It feels like there's a lot of stuff that's already been established that you know nothing about. Like I said, if this film would have removed some of the action elements and instead focused more on story development in the beginning, you might have actually had a much more coherent overall narrative. Instead, you get this weird disjunctive like, oh, Jupiter Jones, I clean toilets. Oh, you're a princess. Really? Yes. Is that what you saved me from the weird, like, backward walking alien things? Yes. Why do you have wolf ears? Which look nothing like wolf ears. He looks towards the end, looks more like an Abelial elf than anything else. And it's like, wow. Yes, that's the elf with wings. I'm like, wow. This is... I was like, oh. That's an awesome looking, kind of dinosaur dragon looking thing. You know? Someone should take some of that code and do a live action version of Disney's dinosaurs. You could use that style, that movement, that walk pattern. Disney's live action gargoyles. Done. But overall, this film has got some really good moments. But it's just really, really bad. Worst film ever made? No. This generation's Battlefield Earth? Kind of. But I wouldn't say this is on par with Battlefield. This is actually a movie you could watch. It's just... It's not exciting. Doesn't really feel mentally stimulating. It just feels dull. And lifeless with a bunch of CGI stuff flying at me. And Channing Tatum speed skating.